Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. Patrick, it is time for a mailbag. It is holiday time, and the fans have a lot of questions. They want to know what's going on. Let's get right into it. I'll start it up with this first one right here. It's from CSWC Andy. He wants to know, after the Tucker acquisition, do the Cubs need to go and get another big bat and arm? Seems like they're all in on this upcoming season.
Great use of air quotes, Andy, on all in, because it's the exact type of phrase that would make Jed Hoyer cringe. So I think we're going to have to use it in our copy all the time this season. Yeah, they could really use both. I think they need another arm, and all indications are that's what they're pursuing. I think the big bat, if they had a Dodgers, Phillies, Mets level payroll, would also be on the table. But we'll get into some payroll stuff later. I have a harder time seeing them fitting in that big hitter. I mean, they're not going to find a hitter better than Tucker, I don't think. And they're absolutely paranoid, with good reason, about running through all of their pitching depth and being caught shorthanded. So that's where I see them heading the rest of this winter.
Right. There was another question about the offense in general. Why aren't they more focused on getting more bats? Listen, I think Tucker's a big enough upgrade over Cody Bellinger that I like. Look, I get it. It was an inconsistent offense, and there were concerns about it, especially in May and June. I do think the offense is better than what it showed in May and June. I do. I know that bit me in the butt going into last season, but I truly believe that. And I think Tucker is the type of dynamic bat that changes the look of the offense and just makes it feel like it's going to be a little bit more consistent. I also believe that the depth that they have is going to be better. I think having the kids as depth is a good thing. Like having Shaw as either competing for third base or your starting third baseman to start the season isn't a bad thing. Alcantara, Casey, whoever doesn't get traded, like Ballesteros or Triantos, having these guys like to call upon right away is much better than what they had before. It just is. It's better depth, and it is much higher upside. And yes, they're like, all indications are that they're getting another arm. How they go about doing that, I think, is the question. And that leads to this next one. Do the Cubs have a legitimate shot at Roki Sasaki or Corbin Burns? Which one have the Cubs shown the most interest in?
I would say one addendum to that previous question. Maybe there's a free agent or something that is still out there in February. Maybe there's like a scenario in which a guy falls to them. But these two,
great call.
That's great call. I want to leave an allowance for that. But these two pitchers, I don't see any sort of opportunistic value deals. Obviously, Sasaki is a guy who will come on a very nice, affordable minor league contract. The Cubs have shown far more interest in Sasaki than Burns. I would be really surprised if they even gave a token effort into signing Corbin Burns. That seemed ruled out pretty early. And I don't know, what have you been hearing on Roki? I know you talked to some people at the winter meetings of just like, what is this guy thinking?
Yeah, there's not a lot of clarity, and my guess is over the past week there's probably a little more clarity. That stuff hasn't leaked. People aren't talking. They don't want to, I think, cause issues in any way by putting it out there. I know this. Okay, we've said this before. The Cubs feel very confident with what they've built as far as welcoming Japanese players to Chicago. They felt they were at a disadvantage 5, 6, 7 years ago when they started recruiting these types of players, because there was a natural inclination for players to be on the West Coast or go like maybe even New York, right? But New York even has a disadvantage because of the weather. And that was the big question with Chicago. Not on the coast, not can get really cold. And those were two knocks against Chicago. I think they've really done a good job of making it a welcoming city and making it so Japanese players feel like this is a destination for them. Can they get Roki Sasaki? I don't think they're the leader. I don't think they're the number two. I'm not ruling them out because we still haven't gotten clear word on what he wants. And I also think that adding Kyle Tucker is a really nice little little thing to kind of push and say, like, look, we're trying to win. It sounds like winning is one of the things he wants, right? Like, was it Joel Wolf that was saying, like, he watched the Dodgers, he watched the playoffs, and he saw that, and that appeals to him. Winning, he didn't get to see the Cubs win, so maybe that is a ding against them, but they're clearly trying to. That's obvious to all of us, right? I mean, you don't make this type of move unless you're trying to win in 2025. Not all in. Did I say that? Like how much Jed Hoyer dislikes the word all in?
Yes.
Not all in for 2025. Whether they're trying to win in 2025, that's for sure. Here, Patrick, I'll let you take this one as far as reading it.
Oh, this is a good one from Cole Winterland. What are some of the most shocking moves you guys have covered while on the Cubs beat? You lead us off, Sahadev.
Moves, when we're talking about moves, I think the obvious one that comes to mind is Craig Counsell. That was not on our radar. It was one of those, like, what do I do with my hands moments. It was like that one threw me for a loop. I don't think anyone that covers the team really expected that, and national writers, nobody expected that. It came out of nowhere. Isaac Paredes was a pretty big shock. Outside of that, like in-game stuff, like the David Bodie homer was still that grand slam was one of the wildest things I've ever covered. At non-playoffs, right? And if we're talking about games, like, man, that 2016 run had a few of those moments where you're just like, what? Did that just happen? And like, yes, yeah. Game 7 of the World Series is the obvious one, but I still go back to Game 3, is it? Game 4, ending the series, Game 4 of the NLDS.
In San Francisco,
that one, I did not. That was one of those ones where it was like, it's happening again, huh? The Cubs had a great season, and now they're going to get bit. And that, that doesn't, it felt like a Cubby occurrence was about to happen. Yeah. And the opposite did.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Cubby occurrences, because I don't know if shocking is the right word, but when I look back on kind of different eras of this team during my time covering it, certainly like Carlos Zambrano packing up his stuff one night. That was Mike Quaddy basically saying, I don't know, he packed up his stuff. He told Otis he was leaving or something like that. That was, there's a bunch of those type of, I don't know if it was shock when they landed Theo Epstein and Joe Madden. That was more, maybe I'd say, exciting. Those are kind of logical, though. I think the Counsell one was the one where you and I were texting that day. Like, oh, I'm thinking of maybe doing some fall league coverage this week, or what do you got, whatever. And then just, I think I just got into my hotel room and was kind of getting ready to drive over to the GM meetings. And you text me like, do you see this? And you used probably an unprintable word or two. And that was absolutely shocking to me. And then maybe not shock, but more shock and awe of just, seeing the World Series 2016 parade, being able to like that was kind of overwhelming. And then last one, again, not sure if shocking is the right word, but just surreal and unforgettable would be just our times at Wrigley Field during the 2020 season. Just no fans in there like that. in the moment, what didn't feel quite as shocking. It was just disorienting. But like if someone had told you, only a couple of years earlier that we'd be wearing masks in the press box and they'd be playing in an empty stadium, that was, certainly mind blowing. But
yeah, that's a good one.
I mean,
2020 as a whole. Yeah.
That was I got to give Cole props. That was a very, very good question.
Yeah. I like switching it up right there. What is the premise with so many contracts set to expire in 2026? Does it feel like Tucker would be worth the big contract past 2026 due to the vacancies in the lineup? That's Tyler Dershel. Look, I'll say this. Like, is it I think he makes sense. Yes, I think that's a good reason why Tucker makes sense too. Like, you have a lot of money coming off the books a year after he would have signed this deal extension, whatever it would be. Likely not an extension, but you'd have a lot of money coming up and a lot of young players coming up, right? What is the deal with it? I think that is the deal with it. They saw a lot of young players in their system. They saw they saw the opportunity, like, maybe we can add a big player, and if we do, with like that contract won't be in conflict with these other contracts that we have, the bigger contracts. So you have this one big contract, and you hope that some of these kids fill a bunch of spots, and then you add one or two more contracts in the Hap, Seiya, Tyone realm. Right now, what you'd have is Tucker, if they can sign him, and Dansby Swanson, and then it's nothing else beyond that, right? Am I wrong?
I think that sounds about right. Yeah.
So like, yes, it's lined up in that sense. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence, and it's also not a coincidence that they trade for Tucker now. Like, you can't, like, it didn't work out last year the way they, like, maybe not like what they were expecting, but at least hoped. They didn't have the type of season they had hoped for. So you have to be a little bit more aggressive. And now you have this 2-year window, if you want to call it that, and you extend that with kids and then spending again. So that's the perfect scenario. Does it play out that way? I guess we'll see.
Yeah, good callback to I think it was our first question about the idea of a big bat. I mean, Jed made it clear part of this year is they want to figure out what they have. So that's Matt Shaw. Michael Bush isn't really, going out on a limb anymore, but obviously give him more runway. If they have an injury, instead of plugging in Cody Bellinger, I'd imagine it would be Kevin Alcantara. If Nico's hurt, could James Triantos? I mean, Owen Casey, is he going to get some run this year? So I think we'd have a better idea, several months from now. And it goes back to Sahadev. You're the one who's made this point, and it always sticks in the back of my mind of what did Theo and Jed talk about, of being able to, like, pack every corner of your roster with the most talent possible. It means having those good players on pre-arb minimum salaries, and that gives you the flexibility to go bigger in other areas. And if everything goes right, which I guess everything never goes right, but we have a guest. Yeah, there we go. Got any questions there?
Watching, my dog is really wants her 3:00 treat at an hour and a half early. So she's
that's Christmas break, I mean.
Yeah. I was going to say about Alcantara, I find it interesting we haven't heard his name at all in trade rumors. Maybe it just hasn't gotten leaked, but I haven't heard his name in trade rumors, and I think that's interesting. Like I brought up in an episode or two ago about how I guess he's now the main depth with Bellinger gone, right? He can play center field. He can play all three outfield spots. Yep. He's supposedly a plus defensive center fielder. Maybe he's their fourth outfielder entering the season, or I guess say it would be the fourth outfielder. But like he's your depth. Like I think that's interesting for sure. It's the whole concept of everything kind of coming off the books in 26, I don't think it's a coincidence. So we'll see how they treat it and what exactly it is they do. And we brought this up a couple episodes ago, but who knows what happens after this CBA expires, this current
that's a good point. That's a good point too. Yeah.
Expires. I don't know if that was part of their thinking. Like, are they that forward thinking when they're doing these things? Maybe, but I don't like it. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Hopefully, we're not talking about that much. Geez, I really don't even want to think about that. All right, go for this one, Patrick.
All right, Strand 34 wants to know, why is the media narrative that the Cubs are focusing more on another starter than a closer? Not having a closer the past couple seasons has been a huge issue. Teed up for you, Sahadev.
I mean, it's not a media narrative when Jed Hoyer says these things on the record that they need more starting pitching, that they're looking for more starting pitching,
correct,
that they're aggressively pursuing more starting pitching. So it's not the media creating this narrative and just saying like, this is what they got to do. It's what they're doing. And I just like, the bullpen is an issue, not the closer. Stop looking at the blown save statistics. You know why you're seeing all those blown saves? Because they couldn't get to the ninth inning. Was Hector Neris a problem last year? Yes. But a lot of it happened in the seventh inning, this eighth inning. It wasn't always the ninth inning. Does a closer solve that? Yeah, possibly. But Porter Hodge did a pretty good job at the end of the season. I'm not saying you have to go into the season with Porter Hodge as your closer. There was another question I didn't put in that has to do with this, that basically says, is it a failure if they go into next season with Porter Hodge as the anointed closer? If they don't have an obvious closer that's not Porter Hodge, I don't think Porter Hodge is the anointed closer. I think Craig Counsell is kind of going to play around with it, and he's very good with that. Simple question: over under Cubs payroll on opening day, $220 million. Dan Dubois, what do you say?
Good question, Dan. Kind of a sad reflection of the Cubs that it's sort of a toss-up. I would say over. In terms of like CBT calculations and things like that, like that's roughly 15 to 20 million. There's some cash flow items or money that's been moved around over the years in terms of signings, mutual options, like things of that nature, signing bonuses. So I'd say it'll be over, but I have, zero confidence that it'll be over the CBT threshold. And I do think that the way this team is set up and the way it's operated, I would expect them to be adding at the trade deadline and maybe, a couple significant additions. And that's an area where Tom Ricketts has weighed in at least once. Like, he pushed that Nick Castellanos deal over, like, this team needs something. So I would certainly expect it to rise over the course of the season. It would just be a matter of, like the on paper 26-man payroll when they go to Tokyo. Not sure. What do you think? What do you got?
I go with AAV. That's what I look at with this stuff. So, I mean, because that's how it all works, right? That's what they're thinking as far as if they go over, that like triggers different things, right? So like 241 million is the first luxury tax threshold. I don't think they're going to be going over that. That's kind of their goal, right? To stay under that this year. So my usual assumption is to give them about 10 million under that. So I think it's going to be over. Like I think it's going to be over 220. Maybe not significantly to start the season, but I think they'll push towards that 241 number. It's not too different from what you said. I think we're on the same page there, Patrick.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thanks so much for everyone for listening and all the questions. You really helped this show go. We appreciate it. Hope you're all having a happy holiday and a happy new year soon enough. Thanks so much. Take care. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe to Northside Territory. Subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I will be on top of the offseason all winter long. Thanks so much, everyone.